Isha, inshallah. Our guest tonight is Shiakh Ibrahim Zidan. He's a very well-known scholar in the area and in the US, mashallah. He's a student of Sheikh Muhammad Ismail. He has ijazah in the 6 books of hadith from him. He's also a very active scholar. He gives many classes and seminars throughout the continental United States. He's also a frequent guest of the Deen Show, and inshallah frequent guest to our masjid in the near future. He's also currently the Imam of Al-Manara Academy in St. Louis. And now let's go to the program. Okay, so the program, we will inshallah give around 3 minutes for everybody to pray the sunnah, and then we will start with the lecture, 50 minutes lecture, around 50 minutes lecture, and then we will go to the questions part. So we'll have a short Q&A, about 20 minutes of Q&A. We will start with the questions that relate to the topic. The topic, by the way, is the rights of your neighbors, Muslims and non-Muslims. And then we will stop for 3 minutes for Adhan, and then we will continue the Q&A part. Now, if you have any questions, we will give you a piece of paper and something to write with. Write your questions on them and give them to Brother Ahmed al-Sheikh. He's not here, but when he comes, give him your questions. We will start, you can ask general questions or questions regarding the topic. We will start with the questions regarding the topic, and then we will move on to the general questions. And then we will pray Isha.
ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. It's my pleasure to be here, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept all of everybody's deeds and to bless this gathering and to make us among those who seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Mawdu' or the subject is about al-jar, or the neighbor. And this is a very specific topic, and a mawdu' khas. And usually the very specific topics, for the first time a person be present in a place, we have to lay down the foundation for whatever we talk about. لا شك أنه ما من شيء في أمر من أمور الدين مجملا أو مفصلا لابد أن يكون منطلقا من أصل هذا الدين. فأصل هذا الدين هو شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله. فلو تكلمنا عن حق الجار أو حسن الجوار أو غير ذلك من المواضيع التي نحتاجها جميعا، إن لم تكن منطلقة من قاعدة أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمد رسول الله، كان الكلام من العبث. Definitely any subject, any matter of deen that we talk about, it has to be based on لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله. Any specific topic, if we talk about it, like how to be kind to your neighbors or what are the rights of the neighbors, if it's not based on La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, it'll be waste of time. People with common sense, they would find that most of the things that we have in our deen, in the Quran and in the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with regards to relationships and rights and so on, it's the perfect way of life. But it needs patience. It needs, for the Muslim, we look at things in a different way. We seek rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, none else but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we seek rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hereafter. We don't seek the rewards in this life. And this is basically from the muqtadayat, or from the implications of La ilaha illallah. If you say La ilaha illallah, there is no one worthy of worship except Allah. La ma'buda bihaq illallah azza wa jalla. And as a result of that, the only one that we seek the pleasure from is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The pleasure of is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Muslim لا يبتغي إلا مرضات الله تبارك وتعالى. وهذه الدنيا وما فيها ليس فيها إلا ابتغاء مرضات الله عز وجل. وما عدا ذلك فإنما يعود ويكون وبالا على صاحبه. If the person doesn't have this sincerity, this life becomes actually a torture. It becomes a source of misery for the human being when things are not done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us for a reason, and that is to establish the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. There is no other purpose of life except to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And al-ibadah is not one action here or there. Al-ibadah is such a comprehensive meaning, right? And this is where the ulama, when they define al-ibadah, اسم جامع لكل ما يحبه الله ويرضاه من الأقوال والأفعال الظاهرة والباطنة. Comprehensive word to everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, whether it's speech or action, whether it's done inwardly or outwardly. So it's not just the salah or this order or that order, it's the whole entire life of the human being. And everything is created, the heavens and the earth and the trees and the air and human beings and relationships and anything whatsoever in this life, it's to fulfill that purpose. Anything that we see and we witness and we eat and we taste and we hear, everything in our life has to be for that purpose, otherwise we will waste our life and the regret won't benefit the person in the day of judgment. فمفهوم العبودية والمفهوم الشامل هذا ينبغي أن يعتقده المسلم وأن يحيا في هذه الدنيا بمقتضى هذا المفهوم. وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين لا شريك له وبذلك أمرت وأنا أول المسلمين. فعلاقة الإنسان بينه وبين ربه تبارك وتعالى وبينه وبين نفسه وبين جيرانه وبين زوجه وأولاده، أي علاقة تنشأ في هذه الدنيا فيما بين العبد وبين ربه وبين العبد وبين الناس. الله عز وجل خلقنا في مجتمعات متداخلة وعلاقات متداخلة جدا، وهذا لسبب وهو إقامة العبودية لله عز وجل. So whenever it's relationships or places that we are in or a situation or a state that a person is in, we have to witness La ilaha illallah, that the only one worthy of worship is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The only one that we seek rewards from is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't need nothing from the human being. We don't seek. This is an act, right? This is an act of worship. الاحتساب هذه عبودية. عبودية الاحتساب هذه عبودية عمل قلبي لابد أن يقوم عليه القلب. It's a deed done by the heart. It's an action. When you seek the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you seek it in the hereafter. You don't seek nothing from the human beings whatsoever. If they praise you, if they're happy with you, if you get some blessings in this life because of your obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mashallah, this is good. تلك عاجل بشرى المؤمن. But you don't seek it. You see the difference? You don't seek that. This is not what you seek. If it happens, and it will happen, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised the believers, من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة. Whoever do righteous good deeds from male or female, and he's a believer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him a goodly life and also in the hereafter. But this is not something that we seek, again, with matters of worship. We only seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the reward in the hereafter. So this is a very important foundation. This is a very important principle. Why? When you deal with people, right? When we deal with one another, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran that we are fitna to one another. Right? We are a test to one another. وَجَعَلْنَا بَعْضَكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ فِتْنَةً أَتَصْبِرُونَ. We made you to one another fitna, trial, a test. Right? That means we will be questioned in the day of judgment with regard to the relationships that we have. So think of how many relationships we have in this life. And how many people do we meet? Some relationships, it's longer relationships, and some of it is short. Person coming from overseas to study, and here in the school for a few years. He has neighbors, he has people that he interacts with, he has Muslims, non-Muslims, good people, bad people, right? He has family, mother, father, brothers, sisters, wife, children, right? Even the person that is sitting next to you now, it's meant to be this way. It's not just happened. It's all by the qadr of Allah, and there is rights for that person that is sitting next to you. That's why al-jiwar, as one, and forgive me for going back and forth into different issues here, but al-jiwar, or who is the jar, who is the neighbor, right? There is definitions to this. And if you refer to the neighbor as the one that lives with regards to a sukna, or regards to the houses and so on, as Aisha radiallahu anha, she said, it's up to 40 neighbors, 40 people around you in the circumference of where you live. Some said 10 houses or 10 places, and it's all depend on the urf, or what is known to the people. If it's known that this is a neighbor, then it's a neighbor. If it's not known to the norm of the people that this is a neighbor, then it's not a neighbor. But this is a very specific definition. Some said al-jiwar is more comprehensive than this. It's anyone that is close to you, whether it's housewife or wife, or someone sitting next to you in a lecture, right? He's your neighbor. Someone in a classroom, in a masjid, you park next to someone, right? With car-wise, this is neighbor. Some even went to the extent of which that if there's an animal next to you, this is your neighbor. There's an animal happen to be next to you, right? It has rights on you. And you would find even incidences at the time of the early generations of Islam, they would observe it. They would not harm the animals, especially those who are close to them. They would give it more attention, because of this concept that if something close to you, that means it has to have some rights on you, right? As of course the neighbors. So this is part of the deen. When people are fitna to one another, or a trial or a test to one another, that means you have to expect that they won't be always at all times doing the best they can to be kind to you, right? So some people, they would be a test in a good way. Some people will be a test in a negative way. If we talk about how to deal with those who are nice to us, I think everybody would know how to deal with them, right? If somebody is nice to you, you're nice to him. This is common sense that everybody knows, right? You don't need too much of an evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to prove that. Well, Jazal Ihsan al-Ihsan isn't the reward of al-Ihsan. Goodness is nothing but goodness. This is, yes, refers to the reward in the hereafter for the believers, because they were in the level of al-Ihsan, but also it's a principle in life. So this is the easiest part. That's why when people talk about the rights of the neighbors, to be kind to them, to do good things for them, to talk about specific things and so on, and to push away any evil from them, sounds very good. But this is in the norm when there is sa'a and spaciousness and everybody's happy and the weather is nice and everything is good, everybody will agree. But what if the neighbor is not a good neighbor? What if the neighbor is giving hard time to his neighbor, right? And he's not being someone that is righteous, he's someone that is evil and doing evil acts. Here comes whether a person would follow the deen, or he would follow his desires, or the culture, or the norm, or whatever there is, right? And this is what really needs the iman and the faith and the patience and the etiquettes and the subject and so on. So the principle here is that as Muslims, right, we benefit ourselves and we do what is good for ourselves, and that's not enough. Principle of our deen is that we do what is good for ourselves and then we extend these benefits to others. This is something that we have to also realize when we say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, because this is the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many things in the religion, right? As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, فَقَاتِلْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ لَا تُكَلَّفُ إِلَّا نَفْسَكَ وَحَرِّضِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, right? Fight for the sake of Allah, and فَلَا تُكَلَّفُ إِلَّا نَفْسَكَ, that you, O Prophet of Allah, you're not responsible for anyone but your own self. وَحَرِّضِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and encourage the believers, right? Make sure that the believers, they do what is right. So it's not just enough to do what is good for yourself, you have to also encourage others to do what is good, and this is basically the perfect way of life. That the Muslim always complete himself by doing what is good and encouraging people to do what is right. So if people are kind to us, we're kind to them, this is well known. But if people are not, we're not supposed to oppose that with evil, we're supposed to oppose it with what is good, with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to do. And this is basically, if a person understands this and he will do it only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he will be the best neighbor, the best husband, the best wife. People would deal with each other, not waiting for any reward from them, because they're seeking the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Prophet ﷺ, although the hadith was mentioned with regards to Silat al-Rahim, to the relation between the kin and kith, the relatives, the Prophet ﷺ said, لَيْسَ الْوَصِلْ بِالْمُكَافِئ. The wasil, the one that is kind to his relatives, is not the one that would reward them. وَإِنَّمَا الْوَصِلْ قُطِعَتْ رَحِمُ وَصَلَهُ. But indeed, the one that is kind to his relatives is the one that when he is trying to connect the relationship, to make it strong, they sever it. They try to cut it and to abuse it and so on. The same thing when it comes to matters of neighbors or any relationship. Most of the people, their life is مكافآت, right? And especially with dealing with one another. كان ذلك في البيع أو الشراء أو حتى في التواصل بين الناس. علاقات أغلب الناس تقوم على المكافآت والمعاوضات مالية أو غير مالية. ولكن هذا ليس بالضرورة أمر دين، وإنما الدين في أمر زائد عن مجرد هذه المكافآت الدنيوية. Most of the relationships between people is based on rewarding one another. You're kind to me, I'm kind to you. You visit me, I'll visit you. If you're my neighbor and you're good to me, I'll be good to you. This is good, but this is not, again, the whole meaning of being kind to the neighbors in the religion. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us is, as the hadith says, you don't base your goodness towards others based on how good they are to you. No, this is an act of worship. This is an order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you are witnessing that the one that ordered is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one that you seek the rewards from is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you don't seek anything from them. You're not waiting for a reward from them. So you're kind to them, you gave them a gift, so you're waiting in the back of your head, how come they didn't return me any gifts? Right? I'm kind to them and I give them a space for something, but they never do the same thing. That means the intention is not clear. It's not sincerely for the sake of Allah. Right? To be for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you do it and that's it. And you leave it. You don't expect. And again, this is an act done by the heart. You don't seek, right? You don't expect. Definitely, it's out of the decency of anyone that they will be kind to you too. But you don't wait for that. You don't expect this. And also, you would continue to be kind, no matter what they do to you, because this is the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for the Muslim, what he is waiting for to be good to his neighbor, only ayat from the Quran, a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will order him to do certain things, he will do it and that's it. Total submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's what Islam is all about. Istislam lillahi tabaraka wa ta'ala. You submit yourself to the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, regardless of what's the outcome of it. It's enough for you to know that this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. So then, when we see our situations as Muslims, if we talk about this subject, are we ready really to hear the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And what happened to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum and the early generations of Islam? If we know these things, are we ready to imitate them and to follow them and to give that example by being like them? Or we will just do it if the circumstances is in our favors. Right? Then we would say the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, but if it's not according to what we like, we say, but the law of the land is this. I have to sue this neighbor because he's doing this or doing that. And this is my right, and what happened to the ayat and the hadith? But my situation is different and this and that. So the situation has to have sincerity first, that the person is willing to submit oneself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, following the way of the Prophet ﷺ, especially for a Muslim, that he has a risala, a message, right? He's not just living his life to eat and drink and to enjoy himself. He has a message, and that is to convey it, and that is to call people to La ilaha illallah with his actions, and not just speech. Everybody can speak. We can sit till tomorrow morning, and I can speak till then, inshallah ta'ala. My tongue won't get tired. Right? Yeah, we'll fall asleep and everything. But we find it so easy to talk, right? And that's why Iman is not by our tongue only. Although this is mandatory, right? This is an issue of Aqidah, that Al-Iman is not faith in the heart only. It's not enough to believe that we have to be kind to the neighbors, right? This does not make us kind to the neighbors. If we say all the time, we need to be kind to the neighbors, or you say about yourself, I'm kind to my neighbors, I'm kind to my neighbors. If you say that 1,000 times a day, it doesn't make you a kind person to your neighbors. So we have to have also the actions. That's why Iman has 4 things. The belief in the heart, the actions done by the heart, right? And the speech of the tongue, and the physical actions. And this is all from الإيمان. قول وعمل يزيد وينقص. قول القلب أي اعتقادات القلب. عمل القلب الإخلاص، الرضا، الاحتساب، right? محبة الله تبارك وتعالى. وقول اللسان وأعمال الجوارح. And the same thing if a person believes in his heart that there is no one worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his final messenger, but he doesn't say it with his tongue, is not accepted from him. He has to say it with his tongue. That's why if a person wants to embrace Islam, if he has the belief in his heart, he has to say it with his tongue. Unless he's mute, he cannot say it. Then it's a different situation, it's okay. But if he can't speak, he has to say it. And then physically he has to submit himself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the same thing with any matter of our religion, right? It's not just about what we say, is what we have in our hearts, that this is part of the deen. We say that with our tongues, and then we would humble ourselves to act according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us. Right? And once we perfect this, the easiest part is to do the actions of being kind to the neighbors. So the lecture really, if it's 50 minutes, right? If we spend 45 minutes talking about these foundations, and then 5 minutes, 1, 2, 3, hadith and ayat, the matter is, this is good enough. Why? Because we will submit ourselves immediately. Right? We won't need too much convincing. Why? Because we would know that this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in the Quran? Mention the neighbor in more than one verse. For example, the comprehensive ayah وَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا وَذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ وَالصَّاحِبِ بِالْجَنبِ وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ. The order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to worship Him alone. The first thing, وَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. Worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do not associate partners with Allah. Because if what comes after that, it's not based on this, there's no benefit in this life or the hereafter. Right? So this has to be based on the proper belief that a person is seeking the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, does not associate partners with Allah, does not make sujood to a sanam or an idol or anything of that nature, and he follows the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then the different rights, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ. الْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى, the jar, صاحب قرابة, بينك وبينه قرابة. You have a neighbor, and he is a relative. That means his right is doubled here. He's not just receiving from you the rights of a neighbor, but you also have the rights of being a relative to you. So you have to fulfill 2 rights for this neighbor. And وَالْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ, the jar that is close to you, right? And this is where the ulama, they say in the tafsir many things. The wife, they consider her also a neighbor, right? It's not like a neighbor that they're living in 2 separate places, but she is the closest person to you if you're married. That means she's supposed to receive from you the best manners ever. The closest the person is to us, the best manners we're supposed to give them, and not the opposite. We as human beings, we tend to do the opposite, right? The furthest away person from us, he is the kindest, the most kindness we would do to them. You meet them once a year, find so much humbleness and smiling on the face, and all kinds of good things, and maybe gifts and things like that, right? But the ones that we see every day, and we interact with, and they're the closest to us, since there's no formalities anymore, no masks to be put on one's faces, the real human being comes in place here. So this is the real test. Are we really being kind to people because this is what we seek rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doing, or is just our own desires? And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, خَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِ وَأَنَا خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِ. The best among you are the best to his family, and I'm the best to my family. So if we want to be the best to our neighbors, if we want to be the best to our co-workers or school students or whatever there is, if we work on our manners with the closest people, the husband towards his wife, the wife towards her husband, right? And the closest friend to you and so on, if a person is successful in this, then he doesn't have to worry too much. He will be the best to everybody else, because he's successful in being the best to the closest people. And this is by the mercy of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy for us. So, al-jari al-junub, anyone that is close to you, and from among them, the ulama, they mentioned al-jar ghayr Muslim, the non-Muslim neighbor. He is included here. And you would find in the ayat there is no discrimination, there is no difference between a jar or a neighbor that is Muslim or non-Muslim. It doesn't make a difference. There is no evidence that say, although they would say that the jar al-Muslim, he has more rights on you, the rights of a Muslim. So for example, you would say salam to him. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. The non-Muslim, you won't say salam to him, right? You won't initiate the salam to him. And by the way, the non-Muslim, he expects that, right? It doesn't make sense to him. Why would you give salam to him anyway? Right? So there's certain rights to be observed, and that's why the jar, if the neighbor is a Muslim, there are more things to be done besides the rights of a neighborhood, of being a neighbor. But being a neighbor, there's no, as far as neighborhood or being a neighbor by itself, jar, right? There's no difference between a jar that is Muslim or non-Muslim. Understand? As far as the jiwar is concerned. But as far as the rights of a Muslim, that's the rights of a Muslim. If he's a relative, there's the rights of being relative, right? And he is a neighbor, so you fulfill the rights of a neighbor and the rights of being a relative. You fulfill the rights of being a neighbor and the rights of being a Muslim. But if it's a non-Muslim, you still fulfill the rights of being a neighbor. It does not decrease. It is not like less rights of a neighbor. No, he's a neighbor. His rights is based on being a neighbor. Just for the fact that he is a jar or a neighbor. It has nothing to do with who that person is. And that's why even at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they did not have these differences. And Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, when he would eat and he would order for the meat to be given, he had a Jewish neighbor, and he would order for the food to go to him. Right? Why? Because he understood that there's no difference here. And we know from even the stories of the Prophet ﷺ, his neighbor, the Jewish neighbor that used to put things on the way of the Prophet ﷺ, dirt and so on, and the Prophet ﷺ would remove it, right? Or even from the imam of the deen, like Shaykh Ibrahim Zidan rahimahullah. He had a neighbor, he had a Christian neighbor, and he was abusive to him, right? And they had a common thing between them, like a hole or something in the ground, and that neighbor would put his, the sarf, when a person, the waste goes underneath, right? And he would share that with his neighbor, so he would usually clean it without telling him anything. Shaykh Ibrahim would clean that, every day. And he wanted to move from the place. He just gave him an advice. He told him, I'm not sure if people would want to purchase the house, right, because of that issue. So I would just advise you that you clean it. This is when he was leaving only. Right? When he was settled there, he would clean that from his neighbor. Would not even inform him, which is one of the rights of the neighbors. Right? So anyway, so this is what the ayah says. There's many hadith, one of which the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, that the Prophet ﷺ said, it's an authentic hadith in Bukhari and Muslim and others, ما زال جبريل يوصيني بالجار حتى ظننت أنه سيورثه. The Prophet ﷺ saying that Jibreel kept on ordering me or telling me about the jar, about the neighbor, right, to take care of him and so on and so forth, too much, to the extent of which I thought that the neighbor will be a heir or inheritor. He would inherit from his neighbor. That some verses of the Quran will come down to give the neighbor a share of inheritance. Right? To that extent, Jibreel alayhi would order the Prophet ﷺ to mention the neighbor, the rights of the neighbor, and so on. That's why briefly, to what time we have the lecture?
Until the other, let's say.
Which is
No.
Okay. So the ulama, they talk about three things in general, which is the rights of the neighbor, any neighbor. The first thing is to do what is good. Al-ihsan ila al-jar, right? To do what is good. This is an actions. Actions that has to be done. And actions depend from one place to the other, from one environment to the other. What is norm to people in a certain environment is different than the norm in other environments, right? ولذلك العرف لابد أن يراعى. الإحسان إلى الجار هذا فعل وليس من باب الترك، وإنما هذا فعل. لابد أن تحسن إلى الجار، ولابد أن يحصل هذا الإحسان بالفعل وبالقول. وهذا الإحسان يعتمد الأمر فيه على العرف، فيختلف الحال إذا كان الإنسان في بلد مسلم أو في بلد آخر على حسب ما يتعارف عليه الناس أنه من الإحسان إلى الجار. So this is again different from one place to the other, but this is an action. And al-ihsan or goodness is with one's speech and actions, right? So the neighbor has the right on you to at least smile to him, right? This is an extended goodness. This is a good deed to smile to the neighbor, to make him feel comfortable that you're there for him. If in the norm of the people that you can give, and actually this is, everybody would like this as long as it's not in a way that would make the neighbor uncomfortable, giving gifts, for example, being there for him if he needs help. And he should have that feel. He should feel that if he needs help, that you will be extremely happy to help him. Right? So you have to remove some form of barriers between you and him. You have to extend his benefits to him. That if he needs anything, at times of sadness, you are there for him. Death or a calamity or something, you're there for that neighbor to be kind to him. If it's time of joy, as long as it's halal and not something haram or against our religion, you're there also to share with him without any haram involved. The obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is something not to be compromised whatsoever. And to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no conditions to it. But the pleasure of the people is all depending on how we are seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. طاعة للمخلوق في معصية الخالق وجعلنا بعضكم لبعض فتنة. Also in that perspective, we are fitna to another from that perspective. You want to be kind to the neighbors, but the neighbor, the only way you think that you are kind to him if you commit a sin, then definitely don't commit the sin. But then you do whatever it takes to be kind to him without committing the sin. Even if he's upset, it doesn't matter. Why? Because the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something. And that's why the name